Hello and welcome to this little beauty here, and it's going to take a while to explain, so I hope you bear with me. Now there are two methods for doing this, and I'm going to do the easier method first. Now when I say this, I have my suspicion that that q of x here is actually the inverse of p. Okay, so in effect what we got here is p inverse of p. Okay, so now if we can show that, if we can get this inverse of p back to there, okay, so the inverse of p will be p itself. So that's what we're going to try and show. We're going to show that if q is the inverse of p, then the inverse of p will give us p of x. I hope that makes sense. So, right, now here we go. So if we're now, instead of writing q of x, I'm going to write y, and then I'm going to write 2 minus 3x divided by 1 plus x there. Now to find the inverse, if we replace y by x and x by y, yes, we end up with x is equal to 2 minus 3y divided by 1 plus y. So this x is now replaced with y, and this x here is replaced by this y here. Now when we multiply across, we end up with x into 1 plus y is equal to 2 minus 3y. Open up our brackets, we have that x plus xy is equal to 2 minus 3y. If we now, I could have done it the other way around, but if we now move our xy to the right hand side, the sign will change. It will become minus xy. And if we move 2 to the left hand side, the sign will change, then becomes minus 2. So we end up with minus 2 we end up with x minus 2 is equal to minus xy minus 3y. If we then factorize the right hand expression, we have that minus y, we have that x minus 2 is equal to minus y into x plus 3. If we multiply both sides by minus 1, we end up with 2 minus x is equal to y into x plus 3. Okay, now if we then divide both sides by x plus 3, we end up with y is equal to 2 minus x divided by x plus 3, which is the same as p of x. So q then is the inverse of p of x. So if you multiply if you do p into p, if you do p into the inverse of p and then an input, your answer will be the input. I hope I'm making sense there. So q is in effect the inverse of p. And in that case, the input will be the same as the output will be the same as the input. So the answer to this question here is the square root of 2. Now for the second part, we can do it in two methods. Second method will be, right, we now have to replace this x with square root of 2, and that x is square root of 2, and that's what we got here. Okay, so instead of having 3x, we got minus 3 square root of 2, and instead of having x there, we have the square root of 2. Right, so now we've got a radical or a third as the denominator. We then have to multiply. To rationalize, we have to make use of our knowledge of difference of two squares. And so if we multiply the denominator by 1 minus root 2, we must also multiply the numerator by 1 minus root 2. And so the denominator then becomes 1 squared minus root 2 squared. And root 2 squared is 2. So 1 minus 2 is minus 1. So that's what we've got here. And now we open up the numerator, we end up with this here. 6 plus 2 is 8. Minus 2 root 2 minus 3 root 2 you put together like terms, the answer is 8 minus 5 root 2. Now, because we got minus 1 here, the answer would then be 5 root 2 minus 8. We then substitute this value of 5 root 2 minus 8 into there, into p of x. So we change all the x values to 5 root 2 minus 8. And that's what we got here. Okay, now what's happened here is that I got a minus sign here, which changes the minus 8 to plus 8. So in effect, we now have that 10 minus 5 root 2 divided by 5 root 2, because 3 minus 8 is minus 5, so divided by 5 root 2 minus 5. So the minus 5 comes from there. Okay, and when we factorize the numerator and the denominator, we have 5 outside the bracket, and the 5s will cancel out. So we end up with 2 root 2 divided by root 2 minus 1. Again, we have to think in terms of difference of two squares here again. So 2 root 2 minus 1 times root 2 plus 1, we end up with root 2 squared minus 1 squared. Now root 2 squared is 2, so 2 minus 1 is 1. Okay, and now we open up the brackets for the numerator, and we end up with 2 plus 2 root 2 minus root 2 minus root 2 times root 2. Now root 2 squared is 2, so 2 minus 2 will cancel out. So we now have that 2 root 2 minus root 2, similar to saying 2x minus x. 2 root 2 minus root 2 give me root 2. And that's the answer. So that confirms what we did for the first method. Whew. I hope all that makes sense to you. Please watch it again, and please subscribe, and hopefully see you again sometime. Bye bye now, and thanks for watching. Bye bye.